I'm Dr. Bonnie Hennig Trestman. I'm coming to you today from Roanoke, Virginia. I wear a lot of different hats in the HD community. First, I'm the Special Programs Director at HD Reach. I'm also the Director of the Carilion Clinic HD program in Roanoke, Virginia. I'm involved in HDYO as the co-chair of the research committee, and I'm the co-chair of the credential committee for the Huntington Study Group. I have worked with people who are at risk, people who have tested positive or negative, people with symptoms of HD, and families impacted by HD for over 2 decades. I am passionate about the work that I do. Today, I'm going to present a talk on making choices. When you were little, you might have remembered a joke that went like this. You would hold one end of a banana up to your ear. Somebody else would say, "Why are you holding that banana up to your ear?" You would reply, "To keep the elephants away." And they would say, "But there are no elephants here." And you would say, "See, it works." I remind you of that joke because many times we make decisions about what we want based on perception and not facts. This happens multiple times in our decisions about seeking symptom relief, treatment, and cures for Huntington's disease. I'm going to give you some examples, and then I'm going to offer some take-home points. I'm going to break down those examples into 4 categories. These are nutrition and supplements, cannabis, testing for the HD gene, and the COVID vaccination. Let's start with nutrition and supplements. People, not only people impacted by HD, are bombarded every day with ads and social media trying to get us to buy into a nutritional fad or supplements that they say will treat HD. The truth is that there have not been many clinical trials to prove any of these claims. Remember, a clinical trial is research that's done with a compound the researchers want to test, and a placebo group who receives something that looks just like the drug being tested, but it has no active ingredient. Sometimes research uses control groups, meaning that this group of participants doesn't receive the treatment at all. So a good clinical trial for nutrition might be one where a group eats certain types of foods or takes a supplement, and they are matched with the control group, meaning that they might be similar ages, gender, and have similar CAG repeats, and have similar lifestyles. But the control group doesn't eat that type of food or receive the supplement. Then, after a while, these 2 groups are tested using questionnaires, biomarkers, such as blood tests and body mass index, to see if there's a clinically significant difference. Biomarkers are important in HD research because we might report that we're feeling and doing well, but we need something objective we can actually measure. As I mentioned, this can be a blood test, body mass index, blood pressure, weight. With overall nutrition, what has been researched is that when people eat healthy and take care of their bodies, they usually do feel better. And although we do need more clinical trials that focus specifically on diet for people at risk or who have symptoms of HD, taking care of our bodies is always a good decision. We should all try to eat well, drink plenty of water, exercise, get enough sleep, and stay away from alcohol and recreational drugs. We don't know if that will help delay symptoms of HD, but taking a supplement that somebody else swears makes their symptoms of HD better is definitely not the answer. We also don't know exactly what's in those supplements because they're not regulated by the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. Even supplements that are considered natural might actually interact with medications given to you by your healthcare team. And remember, everybody reacts differently to what we put into our bodies. So while somebody with HD might feel better on a certain diet or taking certain supplements, we don't know exactly why that is. The best rule of thumb is to ask your healthcare team. Now I'm going to talk about medical marijuana or cannabis. Back in 2017, HD Buzz released a wonderful article about this topic. It is certainly worth reading. What happened is that people were posting videos on the internet showing how cannabis works for them. Well, we know cannabis extract from the actual hemp plant or synthetic cannabis, meaning it is man-made to imitate the natural product, is a relaxant, meaning that it promotes relaxation. So these people were recording themselves or a loved one before and after using cannabis. What we would see is the person on the video who first had a lot of movements, now totally relaxed. What we don't know is that there might have been other factors which might have reduced their movements as well. And there's a big and, we also don't know what damage this cannabis could cause. What we do know is that cannabis is a depressant which affects the nervous system. So people with HD, which is a brain disease, are using a compound that slows brain function. In addition, there can be other short-term side effects such as anxiety and paranoia. And there are also long-term side effects. When people smoke marijuana, just like with cigarette smoking, it affects their lungs. And for people who say, well, I only use it to help me sleep, know that over time, you might not be able to fall asleep at all without this drug. You can also develop a tolerance where you need more and more of the drug to get the same effect. And while some people use cannabis to feel more relaxed, other people can actually become more stimulated using it. So if you're having symptoms of HD, and especially if those symptoms bother you, talk to your healthcare team. Going in and saying, I want medical marijuana for fill in the blank, chorea, anxiety, dystonia, is very different than saying, I have these symptoms and you know what medications I'm prescribed. What do you think might help? I've heard about medical marijuana. Do you think that that might help my symptoms? Like nutrition and supplement, I do agree that more clinical trials are needed to find out if there are certain types of cannabis that could help people with HD. Until that time comes, however, I strongly recommend you talk to your healthcare team and be honest about supplements and recreational drug use. Let me stop for a moment before we move on to testing. When we talk about nutrition, supplements, and cannabis, I want to let you know that I do realize first, when you eat certain foods or use certain recreational drugs, that there is a euphoria, a high, which can feel good for some people. But what I'm saying is that you don't know what happens all the other times when people aren't posting to social media. You don't know when they aren't feeling good or having short-term or long-term side effects. The second issue is that there's something called a placebo effect. A placebo effect is a benefit produced by a person's belief rather than treatment itself. There's a lot of research about placebo effects. In fact, just participating in a clinical trial has shown to be beneficial to people, whether they're on placebo or real drug. The reason could be because the person sees their healthcare team more often. And there are many people who swear they are receiving the actual drug when they are in a trial because they look and feel better. And when the trial is over, they might find out that they were on the placebo the whole time. The placebo effect also applies when people are taking the actual study drug, but the data shows it isn't clinically significant. And that has certainly happened recently in the news involving HD clinical trials. Again, each person reacts differently to what they put into their body. So when a drug is not clinically significant, we don't know exactly the reason why the person in the study feels and looks better. And we don't know how long they would stay that way once the drug is stopped. Let's move on to genetic testing. We all know that the decision to test should be in the hands of the person who is deciding to be tested. And just to clarify, I'm referring to adult onset HD. JOHD is a whole different topic. But what I want to address is what I have seen and heard on social media. There are posts suggesting that people should get tested anonymously and then, if positive, find a new primary care physician to manage their overall care and not mention HD so it's not written anywhere in their medical chart. Now, for many people, anonymous testing is a really good idea. Even though we have laws in the United States that protect people from genetic information discrimination, we know that unfortunately this still happens. And sometimes people just don't want their HD testing information in their medical records. That's fine. What isn't fine is when somebody knows they have HD in their family and tests positive for the gene. Then they create a medical chart which they release to an insurance company. Simply said outright, that is fraud and it's wrong. Second, there is a risk that years down the road, when a person needs to file a claim for the insurance, the details of the original gene test might inadvertently be used, which would make the policy invalid. There is a better way. Openly discuss HD in your family. Find out prior to testing who is eligible for benefits and look into those benefits before being tested. It is much better to be open and honest than to try to hide information. I personally know people who are at risk for HD who have been able to honestly obtain benefits such as life insurance and long-term care insurance. Talk to HD advocacy groups who can guide you to the correct people to speak with. You are not required to register or have a medical chart created if you just want to pick up the phone and ask questions. Again, HD advocacy organizations like HD Reach aren't medical organizations, so talking to them if you have any concerns about testing is a good first step. Finally, I'm going to talk about the COVID vaccine. I have heard that people on social media are frightened about getting the vaccine because messenger RNA or mRNA is used in the COVID vaccine. Now, these people wisely know that mRNA plays an important part in HD as well. However, the cells in our bodies have tens, if not hundreds of thousands of different types of mRNA. Messenger RNA is like an instruction manual. HD study drugs that target mRNA tear up the instruction manual, which makes the bad HD protein. What mRNA in the COVID vaccine does is to add a different instruction manual, which teaches our bodies how to recognize and fight off COVID. So again, these mRNAs are totally different. You can learn more about this from the HD Buzz article published in February 2021, which talks about the COVID vaccine and answers questions such as, is the COVID vaccine safe for people with HD? It has been a very difficult time for all of us to be this isolated for so long due to COVID. It is even more detrimental to people with HD who might have depression or anxiety and feel isolated. So getting the vaccine is one way to work towards safely getting back together again. And while people at risk or who have symptoms of HD are not more susceptible to COVID, people who have advanced HD who do get COVID could get really sick and potentially die. So being vaccinated against COVID is a good idea. The message from healthcare experts is that there is a higher risk of getting COVID if you are not vaccinated, and there is a lot of benefit to be vaccinated. So, of course, you want to speak with your healthcare team, but HD experts still recommend getting the COVID vaccine. And know that there are many HD researchers, some who are at risk for HD, and some who even have the gene for HD, who have received the COVID vaccine themselves. Those scientists are great role models. So please do wear a mask, wash your hands, physically distance yourself from people, and get vaccinated when you have the opportunity to do so. I urge you to learn about science and understand what clinical trials are about. A few key points that make good clinical trials are, they're very clear as to what their goal is. There isn't a conflict of interest. The study was conducted with a large number of people. The results can be duplicated by others, and there are independent groups of people who oversee the study. So what I am saying is that there are a lot that goes on behind the scenes of clinical trials, and people who post videos might be trying to be helpful, or they might be trying to get you to buy something. But that's not science. Although it might seem that these treatments, drugs, diets, and supplements work for them, they can actually be dangerous for you. So here are the take-home messages. As much as you want to, don't believe everything you see or hear on the internet, especially on social media. When you are making a decision about something, Think about the reason you're making that decision. For example, do you want to decrease anxiety? Rather than saying to your healthcare team, I need a medical marijuana card, talk to your team about their recommendations and be open to the suggestions that they will offer to you. Make sure sources of information are not biased and clinically sound, meaning that the people making these claims about the treatments don't have a reason to sway your decision and that they are conducting high quality research. And work with your healthcare team and be open and honest with them. We all want to find treatments and cures for HD, and I believe we will. But when it comes to making decisions, you want facts and not just a banana in your ear. I hope this presentation was helpful to you, and I thank you so much for your time.